My name is Chris. I'm not a ghost hunter. I'm not a paranormal investigator. I was a 23-year-old with $800 left in my bank account and an eviction notice taped to my door. That's it. That's the whole reason I took the job. They posted it on Craigslist. Night shift orderly, state-run psychiatric facility. No prior experience required. The pay was almost double minimum wage. There was one line at the bottom of the posting, and I almost didn't read it because it seemed so normal. Applicants must be comfortable working independently in isolated environments. I started Monday. I was desperate enough not to ask what that meant. St. Mary's didn't look like a hospital. It looked like something that used to be a hospital and then became something else. Something that just kept the name out of habit. The hallways were the color of old teeth. The overhead lights made a sound. Not a flicker. A sound. A low, wet hum, like something breathing through fluid. On my first night, the charge nurse, a woman named Beatrice, who had the energy of someone who'd stopped being surprised by anything about 30 years ago, handed me a laminated sheet. My duties, rounds, medication trays, mopping, and then, at the very bottom, highlighted in yellow, do not open the door to cell 4 after 2 a.m. I laughed. I actually laughed. I said, "What happens if I do?" Beatrice looked at me for a long moment. "Nothing happens to the patient," she said. She walked away before I could ask what she meant. The first 2 nights were fine. Boring even. It was the 3rd night when I started noticing the sounds. At exactly 2:15 a.m. I know because I checked my phone both times. A scratching started from behind the door of cell 4. Not a person scratching. I've heard that. I've heard people in distress. This was rhythmic, patient, almost mechanical. Scrape, 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 like something running its nails slowly across concrete to feel where the surface ends. I asked Beatrice about it the next morning. She handed me a meal tray, a bowl of grey meat I didn't recognize, something raw and glistening, and said, "Slide it through the bottom slot. Don't look through the mesh." I said, "What is that?" She said, "Nutrition. I want to be honest with you about something, about the moment I opened the door. People always ask, why did you do it? Why didn't you just leave?" And the answer is the most human answer in the world. I'd been sliding trays through a slot for 2 weeks, listening to something scratch at 2:15 a.m. every single night. And one Tuesday, the power flickered, and I heard the magnetic lock in cell 4 click open. And I was already reaching for the handle before I made the decision. That's the part they don't tell you in horror movies. You don't decide. You're just suddenly doing it. The room was cold, much colder than the hallway. Cold the way a basement is cold. From the ground up, like the earth itself was pulling the warmth out. The walls were padded, old yellowed padding, the kind that's been saturated with years of I don't want to think about what. And in the far corner, barely lit by the light from the hallway, it stood up. I say it because I genuinely don't know what other word to use. It was shaped like a man. It was the silhouette of a man. but the proportions were wrong in a way that took my brain 3 full seconds to process. Too tall, arms too long, not slightly too long, but dragging too long, the knuckles near the floor. The head was bald and tilted at an angle that suggested the neck had more joints than it should. No eyes, just skin, smooth and pale and continuous, over where the eyes should have been. And the fingers, the nails, if you could call them that, were dark and thick, and each one was the length of a butter knife. It didn't scream. It didn't lunge. It tilted its head, like a dog hearing a sound for the first time. The cracking of its neck vertebrae in that silent room. I hear it every night before I fall asleep. I have heard it every night for 2 years. Help, it whispered, except the word didn't come from a mouth. There was no mouth. The sound came from a vertical slit in the center of its throat, an opening that widened slightly as it spoke, like a second set of lips. The lights slammed back on. The lock clicked. The door lurched closed. I was on my knees in the hallway, and I didn't remember getting there. Dr. Albright found me, 40-something, calm, wearing the expression of a man who has had this exact conversation before. He didn't help me up. He crouched down and looked at me very carefully, like he was checking for something specific in my eyes. "You should go home and get some sleep," I said. "What is that thing?" He was quiet for a moment. "Someone we tried to help," he said, "a long time ago." And then, almost as an afterthought, "It knows your scent now. They always start looking after the first time someone sees them." I quit that night. I drove 3 states away. I didn't stop once. 2 nights ago. New city. 3rd floor apartment. Deadbolt on. Chain on. I'd been sleeping fine for months. I woke up at 2:14 a.m. I don't know why. I just opened my eyes. The room was dark, and from the hallway outside my apartment door, scrape, scrape, scrape. The exact rhythm, the exact cadence, bone against floorboard. I'm recording this video because I haven't slept since then. Because I need someone to know what I saw, in case. Look, I don't know what that thing is. I don't know if it's a person or an experiment, or something older than both of those words. But if you're watching this, and you ever see a job that pays too much, with rules that don't make sense, asking you to be comfortable being alone, read the fine print. Some doors aren't locked to keep something in. Some doors are locked because whatever's inside figured out how to find you anyway, and the lock just buys everyone else a little more time. If this story crawled under your skin, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. It helps the channel stay alive. But more importantly, tell me in the comments, do you believe this was actually real? I'll be down there reading.